Hi, I'm a random guy. I'd like to start off by saying what I am and what I'm not. I am trying keto. I am currently peeing on a strip and getting all pretty colors, and I am spending a lot of time reading about this diet for health reasons. I am losing some weight, but I'm only in the third week or so, and I want to talk about why that's not important in a minute. But this podcast isn't about me or my experiences so much about the most common thing in the forums has been that people are confused. There's too much information. They don't know what to pay attention to. And then people just drown them with more information. So I wanted to keep it really simple and answer questions as they came in. First of all, there seems to be the number one misconception about keto is that it's about eating fat. And it is, and I can talk about why, but primarily it's about not eating carbs. And that's a big distinction because you don't necessarily have to eat the fat. When they say it's 70% fat in your diet, they're saying typically as you scale down, you will end up eating 70% fat. And people will say fat is a lever. That doesn't make any sense to me. I guess I just don't get the analogy, but fat is an optional. Fat is what you can eat if you are still hungry after you've eaten your other things. Protein, like they said, is a goal. Let me explain to you, carbs are the problem. So the first thing I want to explain to you is that the reason that it's a low carb, high fat diet is because a low carb, high protein diet isn't possible. A male adult liver can process something like 220 grams of protein safely before urea builds up and the liver hits limits and the kidneys also hit limits. So if you take 220 grams of protein times 4 carbohydrates per gram, you come out with about 880 calories. And almost all of us, I would venture to say everyone needs at least 1,000 calories. I mean, there are probably somebody that, when fasting, sometimes they go with 500 calories or whatever, but typically a diet contains at least 1,000 calories. So if you can only get to 880 when you're at the absolute limit of health problems and negative consequences from eating too much protein, then you can't cut carbs down to 20 grams, which would only give you times 4, 80 calories. So now you've got 880 plus 80, you're at like 960, you're protein toxic, you're carb limited, you're gonna have to eat more, it has to be fat. So the reason why it can't be low carb, high protein is because there's a toxicity issue with your liver. You can't process enough protein to keep yourself alive, so you have to eat fats instead. So that's why it becomes high fat. The goal is not high fat, it's low carb. So in the scientific literature, you're not gonna see ketosis referred to or ketogenic diets referred to as much. You're gonna see low carb, high fat, or LCHF, or very low carb, high fat. So they tend to quantify very low carb as less than 50. Keto people frequently reference going for 20 or lower. So let's talk about that as well. All these calculators, these macro calculators, and everybody's saying, oh, my calculator is different, or somebody said 20, somebody said 50, how come I have 17 on mine? First of all, they're working off percentages frequently, and they're working off percentages based on your perceived total calorie needs. So if your calorie needs are wrong and you say, well, I'm not going to count calories, it will suggest the wrong macros. So if you're counting macros, you still need to set your calories appropriately. The other thing that we're looking at with these carb counters and so forth is that relatively anywhere under 50 is gonna start at least flirting with ketosis. And I wanna talk about ketosis versus fat adaptation. If you've been on the diet for a long time, you become fat adapted. There are processes at a cellular level involving your mitochondria and processes involving enzymes in your liver that take time to upcycle and adapt. And if you don't give those processes time, and by time I mean 2 to 3 weeks at least. So this is not, so if you go full keto on your first couple of days, in your 5 days you're full keto and you're just not eating any carbs, that's part of why you'll get the keto flu. Electrolytes can be another issue, but it's also that you don't have enough enzymes and mitochondria, you don't have the biological infrastructure to do keto yet. You're building it, your body is sensing the stress, it's upcycling those enzymes is what it's referred to in the scientific literature, but you're not there yet. So I get worried when I see a lot of beginners talking about how they lost 11 pounds in 1 week or whatever else, and they love the diet. You're not really on the diet until week 3, week 4, week 5. Because the biological processes that keto is aiming for haven't had time to occur. So therefore, you're not really experiencing what keto is. So when people say, well, I don't like it on day 10, I can tell you, if you're thinking about starting the diet, that you won't know on day 10. That however you feel on day 10 is kind of irrelevant. Keto takes a while to happen. So the fat adaptation process takes a while to happen. And once you're well fat adapted and burning primarily fats, eating too many carbs won't really set you back nearly as much. You go right back to burning fat very quickly. Whereas in the beginning, eating just even a little too much carbs will immediately cause you to roll back in time. Robin, thanks for hopping in. Yeah, and the other thing, Robin, she says she lost 4 pounds and she's on day 9. Part of that is anybody that quotes how much weight they've lost in under 14 days is talking about primarily water weight. Every gram of glycogen you store, your body stores 2 grams of water with it. So when I say it's a 2-to-1 ratio, I mean directly, gram for gram. If you have a gram of glycogen, you have 2 grams of water. So that's why if any of these people that lost 8 pounds in 10 days went back to having just 1 day of normal carb intake, they will probably restore that glycogen and re-add that weight. But what's really positive is after you hit that 2-week period where you lost a couple of pounds, that's where the real fat weight loss happens. From there forward, there's no more water weight to lose. You lose it in some of the tissues, but primarily in your kidneys and your liver. When you dump your glycogen, you lose water weight, specifically that 2-for-1 ratio. So for every gram of glycogen that you lose 2 grams of water. So just hold it out. The other thing is people talk about counting calories, and I want to talk to you about both what I'm experiencing personally, but let's put that behind the scientific literature. When you look at the NIH studies and the publications being done in the AMA and on the diabetic journals about very low carb, high fat diets, what you're looking at is that they say that it is not, when they do a longitudinal study, so they look at what people actually eat after a period of time, and they tell one group, listen, you have to count your fat and you have to count calories. They tell the other group, you have to count your carbs and you have to count calories. They tell another group, just count your fat, and they tell another group, just count your carbs. In the low fat group, counting calories made a significant difference in the outcome of those test groups. In the low carb group, it did not. So it doesn't mean that calories don't matter. It means that when they've done studies against people paying attention to their calories and not paying attention to their calories, when they were counting their carbs, there wasn't a difference in how those two groups performed. So if you don't want to count calories, you don't have to. But that being said, I recommend counting carbs in a free app like MyFitnessPal or whatever. And if you're going to count the carbs there, then it counts your calories anyways. It's informative. It's nice to know. But for me personally, I have not tried calorie restriction. I told myself that the reason that I was doing this was primarily a blood sugar issue. So I was going to get used to learning how to eat the diet before I was going to look for any sort of weight loss, before I was going to screw with calorie restrictions, before I was going to add intermittent fasting or anything else. So I just wanted to get used to keto foods and a keto way of life first, and then I could aim higher. Right, and what I've found is at somewhere around day 18, I was logging my food every day. I just started hitting calorie deficits of 500 to 700, sometimes 1,000 calories, and I just wasn't hungry. So the appetite regulation mechanisms go back into place, and so the research supports that counting calories doesn't necessarily become important, because and the research also mentions that appetite, hunger, and satiation mechanisms seem to work better on low-carb diets. And it would be extending the research past where it goes to blame that specifically on insulin, but it seems to indicate insulin is a factor. So let's talk about insulin for a minute. Again, I just disclaimers, throw it out there. I'm a guy who reads really well. I have a college degree. I'm confident in my ability to read a scientific journal and understand what it means and not extend it too far into hype. But that being said, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a dietitian. Everything you do, run it by a doctor, whatever. The disclaimer, don't listen to me. I'm just interesting. Julie, York, I'm not. I covered that right there. Anything I say, feel free to look it up. It's information, and I encourage you to look at PubMed. Go look for NIH studies and things like this. I mean, the information that I'm sourcing comes largely from diet studies that I looked up as a result of having a problem with my blood sugar. So I had a blood sugar problem. I did some research about what are the treatments for that blood sugar problems, what sort of interventions. I looked at controlled studies. I looked for peer-reviewed, published studies from universities, and I ended up keto. If you don't agree, listen, first of all, I want to say that I don't believe keto works for everybody. Everything I believe personally about nutrition and stuff is that there is a huge genetic and there's also a huge gut biome influence that can be very, very individual. So I don't have celiacs, I don't have Crohn's. There are specific disorders that I don't have. Other people react differently to carbohydrates. Other people have different blood responses. So I'm not saying that what happens for me is going to happen for anybody else. And I'm not saying that keto is going to work for everybody. But for me personally, I've been tracking my fasted blood glucose rates. And during the entire test, they've been coming down. They scatter like they do. But I'm graphing them and the trend is down. And so for me, I'm getting the performance I want out of it. I also happen to be down weight, which isn't the goal. And it's really hard to separate from the fact that I train pretty extensively in martial arts. So the calorie outputs are all over the place depending on what type of workouts we have. So my weight tracking is kind of not a great metric for other people to. But going back to the insulin that I wanted to discuss. High levels of insulin make it hard to impossible for your body to metabolize fat. And the more weight that you have, the more you tend to produce insulin. They're highly correlated. So if you're heavy right now, you're probably producing a lot of insulin, and it reduces that level of insulin. Oh. Are you the only one with a black screen? Back? Came back again. I'm on Wi-Fi. It shouldn't be a problem. Alright, anyways, I'll just keep talking and hopefully... Yeah, there we go. Robin sees me. Hopefully it's still going out. So, the insulin levels, if you're heavy and you're eating carbs, the issue is that your insulin levels may stay so high that you're unable to access your fat. So if you're asking yourself, I'm fat, and I have access to water, why am I still hungry? It's because basically your body is running out of glucose in the bloodstream, and if there's other glucose around, it would like that. It's an easy and quick to metabolize source of energy. So when your blood sugar's on that roller coaster where you're eating and your blood glucose goes up and the insulin comes out and whatever. So what I ran into is a condition called impaired fasting glucose, I think. Based on how my numbers were looking from some testing I did at home over a period of time on my blood sugars. What that's usually a sign of is insulin resistance, and it can lead to type 2 diabetes. So I'm not currently on insulin, and I can currently have a meal with tons of carbs. I was tracking that before my dietary intervention, so I could have a soda and a muffin and mashed potatoes, and my postprandial blood test would be around 100, and anything under 140 is normal. However, my fasted scores were scoring pre-diabetic or diabetic some mornings, so I did in the middle of the night testing and so forth, and all this points to high levels of insulin. So unfortunately, I don't have an insulin meter. I don't know for sure that that's true. But in looking at it, insulin resistance is usually caused by a high level of background insulin, which can be caused by high carbohydrate diets, which, looking at my own past history. I mean, when I was a kid, sometimes I would just bang 6 sodas right in a row while playing video games, no problem. So now that, a lot of you guys are counting 20 carbs and, a soda has 37, the idea of drinking 6, I mean, it's not hard to see where a lifelong American diet, and I wasn't always super heavy, but I did always struggle with my weight. I never felt in control of my weight. I always felt hungry. And I will say that keto, I can't say it's fun. I miss potatoes, and everybody can make all the fake recipes they want, and I really appreciate everybody putting them out there, the cauliflower, bacon, mac and cheese and stuff. But mac and cheese is mac and cheese, and cauliflower isn't going to change that for me. I miss bread, I miss noodles, I miss some kind of restaurants that I could eat at. But this is the first time in my life I've ever felt really like I was able to control my food intake without being hungry. I'm fuller than I've ever been. My blood sugar numbers fasted are coming down the way I want them to. I've lost weight. My energy's better. I sleep better. I sleep less, and I feel more rested. So physiologically, I'm really enjoying keto. Personally, I'm very good at cooking, so I've figured out how to cook in the kitchen and enjoy keto. Some of my favorite meals. How long have I been following a keto diet? I'm on like day 27, I think. So not a super long time. I got through the keto flu part, and now I'm basically coming up short on my calorie needs every day, and weight is starting to fall off. And even with me going to MMA, and I mean, I'm helping people train for a fight. So this isn't like, not to disparage cardio kickboxing, it's a great workout, but this isn't like low intensity going through the motions. I'm training with people that are younger than me, that are preparing to fight, that work out 5 and 6 times a week for a combat class. So with that, I'm still not starving. I'm still coming up 1,000 calories short, and I wasn't even trying to start calorie restriction. That wasn't part of my plan. My plan was just restrict the carbs. The calorie restrictions, the missing my calorie goals for the day, has just been a result of I'm not going to force myself to eat when I'm not hungry, especially if I feel energetic. So I want to tell the people that are early on, hey, if you're in the first 14 days, it sucks. It sucks. It's gonna suck. You have not adapted I messed that up. You have not adapted to running on fats. So if you're in that first 2 weeks, it's gonna suck. You might not feel full because you're not really metabolizing fats. You're not getting the energy, so you're probably still gonna crave the carbs. But there comes a point at which I think for me was 2 weeks. My recommendation would be wait a month. I think for people a safer recommendation is a month to 45 days. Month to 45 days, you will have the fat adaptation, you will have the energy, you won't feel drained. Which is why some people recommend a taper, because it's not physiologically possible, not with the egg fast or anything else, to become fat adapted that quick. You can get into ketosis, but ketosis is going to be miserable because it's not providing enough energy, because you haven't upcycled the enzymes in your liver and you're not ready to produce the energy. So if you're the kind of person that wants to taper. I think the answer to that question is it's like getting into the pool. Do you like to jump in or you like the stairs? I find the stairs brutal. Every time I've ever gotten into a pool since I was like 5, I jump in. Even if it's cold, I would rather that happen all at once. So it's the same way I did ketosis. I did stop all at once. I didn't taper. And the downside of that is it leaves you with a whole bunch of food in your fridge. And I live with somebody who's not doing keto. So now some of those foods were carb foods that I liked that she didn't like. And now they're in the fridge, they're in the pantry. I don't want to throw them out, and trying to feed them to friends when they come by. And it also would be easier for me to be on this diet if those foods weren't around. But I really haven't had problems staying with it. Especially because of the medical concerns that I have about my health. It seems less vain. It's not a weight loss thing. Like, I don't want to be diabetic. Not to stigmatize diabetics, but I've been told by diabetics it's not fun. How do I feel about carbing up? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Do you mean like cheat days where you have carbs every like once a week to break the fasting? I don't know. When I get the answer to that, I'll talk about that. But that's why I got into that. And so it's for blood sugar. It's not for weight loss. It's not because I thought I was uniquely able to burn fat. But I have learned a lot about those things all probably being true for all of those goals, and that being a good idea for people that have those goals. The other thing I want to talk about, my biggest concern with a lot of the stuff I see in keto is the empty calories. I still think empty calories are a huge problem. And so I see, especially the fat bombs, people just making big globs of coconut oil and butter and cream cheese. And granted, butter has, especially grass-fed butter, has certain vitamins and nutrients in it, and it's more robust than you think it is. So if you really have to use a fat, I recommend something more like butter. But when you get to some of these that are just oil, like the mayonnaise, I've eaten a lot of mayonnaise since I've gotten on keto, and I worry a little bit about that because it's an empty calorie, and everybody gets so focused on avoiding carbs and getting their fats, or getting enough fat so that they feel full, or so that they're on the keto prescription. They start discounting things like eating parsley and cilantro. And so when I see fat bombs where people are throwing in thyme and they're throwing in rosemary, and they're adding real foods with micronutrients and phytochemicals, which are basically neurotoxins for bugs that actually do wonderful things for us in our brain. But things like parsley are important. They help regulate your kidneys and things like that. So you can look up the beneficial effects of parsley. But if you go too far on the I just gotta dodge carbs and I want to get a whole bunch of fats, and you just start eating a bunch of oils and butters and dairy, I think that you run the risk of undervaluing things like lettuce. And lettuce and most of your greens, leafy greens, are very keto safe. So don't, in the search to avoid carbs and get fats, forget about things like vitamins and minerals. You should, and the other reason for that, aside from just sort of some moral podium to sit on, is part of your cravings come from your body regulates when you have a deficiency. I mean, people talk about deficiencies. I don't believe you have to track for deficiencies. A lot of studies have been done that say if you're eating whole foods, your craving mechanisms will respond to deficiencies and you will additions. So put rotation and make sure that you have them in there, because they may even contain a carb or two. That is a wonderful place to spend your carb. Spend your carb on some leafy greens. And get that in there, and look for fat bombs that don't just use fake sugar, the erythritol. I don't have a problem with the erythritol. I don't think it's great to lean on it. But at the end of the day, if you're using a lot of erythritol and coconut oil or coconut butter or olive oil, I mean, there's a limited nutrient profile that's going to come along with those saturated fats, which is why a fatty steak is going to have a much broader profile of nutrients. It's a better way, I think, to get your macros. So be careful with the fat bombs. Be careful with the eating straight butter. Be careful with the bulletproof coffee. A lot of you guys, I'm big. I have a lot of flexibility. It's harder for me to keep under calories and standard 20 grams and some calories and standard 20 grams. But I have some flexibility because I have so many calories, but bulletproof coffee can run 400 to 500 calories, and for a person on a 1,300 calorie diet, I know that caffeine has some appetite suppressing qualities, and the cream in there has some satiation to it, but I don't know that has the most robust amount of use up 40% of your calories for the day on bulletproof coffee. That seems like a really big going in on your bulletproof daily. They don't talk about too many other keto foods being a daily routine, but when people talk about bulletproof coffee, a lot of people talk about drinking it every single day. And so if you're on a 1,300 calorie goal and you're drinking a 400 to 500 calorie bulletproof coffee every day, then literally 40% of your diet for the month is those few key components: the butter, the oil or MCT oil or coconut oil if they put that in there. The other thing is bulletproof coffee recipes are kind of all over the place. But be wary of all of those empty carbs or empty calories, because you can start having cravings that are driving you to eat because you're missing your nutrients. You're missing your vitamins and minerals alongside of reducing your carbs. So reduce your carbs, yes. Try to think of nutrient dense foods that are low in calorie that you can add into the diet. Make sure you're still eating a decent amount of protein. And protein, the one thing that I see popping up from time to time, when somebody says you're allowed 100 grams of protein, I'll see a question like, is steak a protein or a fat? They mean protein from the nutritional label, not the weight of a piece of meat. They mean 100 grams of protein on the label from your nutrition facts, not 100 grams of like meat on a scale. That is not 100 grams of protein. So eat real foods, eat fatty meats, preferably meats that were raised on organic feeds or grass-fed. And the reason for that is there's a difference in the fat profiles. The omega-3 versus the omega-6 fatty acids are different when an animal is corn-fed versus grass-fed. So you can look into that yourself. It carries through on the eggs as well. Sometimes you can see it in the color of the egg because when they eat more chlorophyll, the egg color will turn orange. So there is a reason why those sorts of, aside from an ethical reason to be nice to cows, I would love to be nice to cows. I personally do not get all grass-fed things. I'm eating just normal grocery store meat. So I advise it, but I'm not doing it myself. While I'm going here, does anybody have any specific questions about what they've been wondering about keto? I can see the chat, so I can answer questions when they come up. I have not read about fatty liver disease. I did read that 1 out of 4 people on a low carb, high fat diet will develop a problem with blood lipids. So if you've started eating keto, talk to your doctor about it. If you're under 30, they might not test for your blood lipids, so you might want to ask that you've been eating a different diet. You want to make sure that they're in check. Usually your insurance will cover that. Please make sure that they do before you get stuck with an expensive bill at your doctor's. I am of the belief that as long as, because what's ending up happening here, let me talk about another issue. Eating so much fat when I started sounds maybe problematic for cholesterol and other things, but actually right now I'm eating to satiation, and because I'm not on the insulin roller coaster anymore and I don't get all those glucose spikes, I'm not hungry. And because I'm not hungry, I'm eating way fewer calories in general. And because I'm eating way fewer calories in general, even though I'm eating way more fat, I'm probably not eating that much more fat than I did before because I'm eating 2/3 to half the calories I ate before, because the insulin and the glucose spikes aren't driving my hunger. So due to the overall calorie restriction that's now easier because keto is a satisfying diet, I'm reducing all of my intakes. And although I happen to eat a higher percentage of fat, I'm eating less calories total. So I believe it's probably fine. And I do know that the liver has an awful lot of work to do with processing the glucose and also the insulin response. So I actually think it might be better for the liver to be keto, but I'm not a medical professional. I haven't read much on that. So that's me guessing based on little things I've seen in a paper, but I didn't look for papers on how it affects the liver. Do I follow a strict keto diet? Pretty much. Yeah, since I started June 13th, I have not had more than 40 grams of carbohydrates, and that was only one day. I think I had like 37. But every other day I've been counting my condiments and everything else, generally under 20 grams of carbs. One day I got as low as 7. 4th of July and stuff, I was out with my girlfriend. I didn't want to be as strict about it, and I also went out once with my MMA team to a bar, and I let that slide a little bit. And both times, because I had been fat adapted, I went right back into keto. It was over, and I stopped eating the carbs. My keto sticks turned back to the color I needed. In fact, since I've gotten into heavy ketosis up to, you know, probably day 18. I haven't peed on a stick yet and not seen that I was in ketosis, and I've been testing at least every other pee, probably. Do I keep up with the fats? No. I get 70% fats for the amount that I ate for the day. So maybe I ate 1,000 calories. If I ate 1,000 calories, then 700 of that would have been from fat. But I'm supposed to be eating almost like 1,700 calories if I'm at a deficit, 2,000 caloric rate. So I should be eating a lot more fats. At 70%, I should be getting, you know, 1,400 calories of fats, and I'm getting like 700 because I'm just not hungry. And that's the thing, you don't have. Man, my connection, I'm gonna have to rethink this wireless router and going live from this position in my house. I don't want to walk around with it right now, but I feel bad for you guys. A little less connection than I would like to see. So for me, I think there's going to be a long process of my background insulin coming down, and as that happens, I've noticed that my scores are getting my fasted blood glucose scores are getting much closer to a normal. So I've almost reversed what looked like pre-diabetes to a normal fasted blood glucose in like 27 days. So I'm really impressed with that. And based on my linear regressions, in the middle of August, I should start seeing some real normal blood glucose levels if my progress keeps up in a linear fashion, which it's unlikely to. But there's no other forecast that I can make right now. That would be the most likely forecast, even though it's unlikely. Do you have a specific app you use to track your diet? I use MyFitnessPal. A lot of people use Chronometer. If you're going to do it on a laptop or a desktop, I really like the Chronometer website. Chronometer sells their iPhone app, which is why I didn't do it. MyFitnessPal I had like 5 years ago. It told me that back then I weighed 256. And so I've been feeling bad because I got to 213 last year, and I'm back up into the 220s. So when I put in my new weight that I was 227, it was like, congratulations, you know, you lost 20 pounds. And it was great to think of it like that because my fattest was 265. I'm 6 foot tall. I got up to 265 pounds. I did not lose most of the weight through keto. I lost most of the weight through taking up MMA and training to take a fight. Just for physical activity, not because I'm a tough guy or anything. Test my skills. At 34, connection problems out the yin yang right now. Really not appreciating that. But MyFitnessPal, I really like its food database and how easy it is to put in foods. I don't track my water. I do occasionally put in my weight. Let's talk about weights for a minute here. Every time, like, one of my biggest cringes is when I see somebody put in how many days they've been on the diet and how many pounds they've lost, and it's anything under 30 days. Don't do that, guys. The scientific literature I've read says that almost all the weight you're going to lose in the first 2 to 3 weeks is all water weight, and will come right back if you eat carbs for even a few days. And what you want to learn, what you wish you could track is fat weight. Lean muscle mass, and then subtract lean muscle mass from your total weight, and you get your body fat weight. And you want to lose body fat. And you're not really going to make effective long-term body fat losses on this diet in the first 30 days. Because of all the metabolic changes that you're making and whatever else, you may lose a few pounds. Some people do. I'm not trying to discount that does happen. But what I will say is don't pay attention to it. It's a terrible metric. If you have some complex way to test your lean muscle mass, if your gym has some really expensive equipment that does that, or if you're seeing a doctor that has expensive stuff that does that, by all means track that. But I would not just look there. You have to accept the scientific reasons why you should be on this diet, and then you got to give it time to work. And I'm here to tell you that the first 30 days, just don't look. That from the 30-day to 60-day mark, you're going to start to make real adaptations that the weight you lose in that second month is real fat loss. And I'm not even there yet. So I'll tell you that I've lost 11 pounds, and I'll tell you my guess is that 7 to 8 of that is water weight at least. And a lot of it's tied to I recovered from an injury and I've been doing more MMA. So I would say that if you're on keto, let's be real for a second. All right, I don't know how old the audience is, but having looked at the posts in this forum, a lot of you guys are not 20. You know, if you're 20 and it's the first time you've ever put on weight, you got the freshman 15, you're trying keto because you're trying to hit new bench press numbers, I'm probably not talking to you. I'm talking to the rest of you. The rest of you that got fat the way I got fat. Not all at once. Some of you, postpartum depression, pregnancy. I didn't go through any of that. I'm a dude. I went through 1 to 2 pounds a year for 10 years, or 5 pounds. If you gain 5 pounds in a year and you freak out about it, you know, hey, I used to weigh 200 pounds, now I'm weighing 205. Nobody reacts to that. But next year it's 210, and then it's 215. And none of these weights feel bad, because in the course of a year you gain 5 pounds, you don't even see it, but then you see an old friend. You see somebody that you haven't seen in 4 or 5 years, and they're like, hey man, you've been hitting the cheeseburgers. And they're kidding, but it hurts. Or the other thing is, people used to tell me that I look fine with the weight on. You know, that I carry the weight well. I'm a bigger guy. You know, I look fine bigger. But then I would notice if I lost 10 or 15 pounds, people immediately would tell me that I look great. Oh man, you look healthy. You've been getting out more. You've been hiking or something. And the truth is that if you want to make a change for your life, if you're too heavy, you've probably been heavy for years. And I'm a consultant and in many ways a life coach for small businesses. I focus on branding and marketing, and I'm not trying to sell any shit related to keto at all. I'm not in the health industry. I do websites for local businesses, basically. But one of the things that I look at when people take this onto their plate is when they have a business that's a mess, or their accounting's a mess, or they don't have any kind of marketing plan, they want to fix it all that week. And something that I tell them all the time is, it didn't take you a month to get this way, and it's going to take more than a month for you to get it not this way. And if you are honest about when it was that you gained weight and how much weight you gained, then be real about the fact that that's not going to go back the other direction instantly. It took me years to get this heavy. And it is taking me, used to be 265. Then I hit 230s, went back to 240 for a little, went back to 220, got back to 230. Last year I made it to 213. I went all the way back to 237 this winter. Okay? So I'm down to 224 this morning, or what have you, from 236-ish when I started the diet. But what doesn't matter is how much weight you lost in 2 weeks when you've been getting fat for 8 years. It's just a stupid thing to look at. So this is a metabolic change that is going to change how your body responds for the rest of your life. So get through the miserable 2 weeks of symptoms. Get through the next miserable 2 weeks of clearing out your fridge and throwing out shit that's spoiled that you can't eat anymore, and learning how to cook for this new lifestyle that you've never had before. This is all going to suck. But the research is there. Your support groups like this one are there. Once you become fat adapted, once you make it that 30 days, the light at the end of the tunnel is you won't be hungry anymore. And I've not ever felt that way about any other diet, any other lifestyle change. I've always felt that I was out of control. I either had to be hungry and upset and feel deprived, like I couldn't interact with other people or be part of a party all the time. And then now I don't feel like I need to eat. And I can find things to eat. Hot wings are like everywhere. I had pulled pork at the fair. And the other thing is, once you become fat adapted, cheating for a meal doesn't really matter. When you talk about the word diet, a diet is what's an animal or a group eats over a period. You know, if a lion fowl once, that doesn't mean it has a diet of guinea fowl. That means it had a meal of guinea fowl. So when you say, can you cheat on your diet? No, your diet has to be ketogenic. You have to eat ketogenic most of the time. If you say, can I have a meal that's not ketogenic? Absolutely. Now, when you say cheat meal, every gram of carb in the cheat meal counts. So one cheat meal, what does that mean for you? Does that mean you had a pierogi or two? That's not too bad. Does a cheat meal mean that you had the biggest bowl of ice cream and you followed it up with French fries? I mean, that, if you have 2,000 calories of almost all carbohydrates, that's really going to set you back. But can you have 5 or 6 French fries? Can you eat half of the burger with the bun on just because you miss buns? Sure. Especially if you're fat adapted. But we're talking about diets here. We're talking about what you eat as an organism over a longitudinal period of time. So that's why don't look at the scale in your first 30 days. It didn't take you 30 days to get fat. It's not going to take you 30 days to get thin. It took me years, a decade or more to get fat. And so it's going to take me 30 days to 60 days to get really well fat adapted. And then after that, my hunger mechanisms have just worked better. I drink water, I'm not hungry, I have energy throughout the day, I'm able to run at a calorie deficit without noticing it. And that's taking combat classes. I'm in there throwing knees, I'm in the clinch, we're doing takedowns, I'm doing head kicks. It is explosive, high energy, and then I hit the sauna afterwards for a good period of time. So my body is drained out, and I'm getting through. Will I say my performance has been the same? No. If I was gonna fight, like right now, if I was in fight camp week, I would probably put some carbs back in. I think I would need it for optimal performance in the gym. But right now, I'm just trying to keep my skills up. So if I gas out in class, for me in martial arts, practice gassing out in the ring. I just do things like I would do them tired. I use my footwork, I use range, I protect myself, and I try to throw less punches and not let my opponent know I'm tired. So for me, it's just a little game. And I know that when I've gassed out, I'm hitting the wall like runners do. My glycogen's gone. I don't have easy energy stores right now, and I'm outstripping what ketosis can provide in an hour. But I'm okay with that. Like, that's fine. I would love to lose weight. I'm mostly trying to control the insulin, but the insulin production is directly correlated to belly fat mostly, but body fat percentage as a whole. I carry a tremendous amount of my fat in my belly. That is my number one fat carrying zone, as I get a gut right away. So I carry the worst kind of fat for insulin, and I have probably a 25% body fat percentage. So for me, calorie reduction is definitely going to help me control the insulin if I can get it. But I'm not trying to do it. That's the biggest headline I can give you guys is I have not imposed calorie restriction on my diet yet. Yet I am missing my calorie goals by 500 to sometimes 1,200 calories almost every day. Now yesterday I came within 100. I was supposed to eat 2,000. I ate 1,900 calories, and I didn't notice. I think part of it was because I was eating with my girlfriend, so I had an extra meal that I probably didn't really feel like I needed. It was still under my calorie goal for the day. But the days before that, I was missing by just huge leaps and bounds. 1,200 calories, 700 calories, and just not missing it at all. Which again has never happened for me. I've tried to lose weight before. I have successfully lost weight. I was 265. I got down into the 230s without ever hearing of keto. I actually made it all the way to 213 last summer but I was hungry. I missed food. I felt that I didn't have energy. I was cranky. I took naps. And keto hasn't been that way for me at all. And that's what's been really incredible for me, is that I haven't yet made it to trying to restrict calories, and yet the calories are restricted anyways. So please stop quoting how much weight you've lost in the first month. It's a bad way to look at it. Think about the fact that it took you years to get heavy, and that you can get fat adapted in the next 30 to 90 days of your life, and once you're settled in there, it's not going to be hard to eat less food, it's not going to be hard to get back into ketosis, and it's going to change your life. It's going to change how it's going to cause you to be cranky because of food less, like you won't have those blood sugar crashes, there'll be no more hangry in your life. What do I eat? Some people don't like salads, like tuna salad, egg salad, chicken salad, that sort of thing. I love those. So I'll cut up an avocado and put some mayo on it, and I'll put some eggs in there chopped up and make an egg and avocado salad. I've made tuna salad, that's good to make. The other thing is I really like to dress up an avocado. The way I do it is with some sambal chili garlic sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of lime juice. Then I hit it with chopped up cilantro and the mayonnaise and stir that all together, and that is really excellent. I also like to throw sesame seeds on there, chop up an egg and throw it in there if you can. Bacon chopped up in there with the avocado is really, really good. I try to stay away from coffee and also the fake sugars with the erythritol. I don't really have a problem with them, but I just don't think they go with more whole foods where I can. So I'm trying to get my fats in the way of fattier pieces of meat like chuck roast and things like that. I save all of my grease when I cook with bacon. I use bacon fat dressings. Really excellent fun thing to do is just heat up some bacon fat, not to the point where it's totally smoking or anything like that, just over 200 degrees, like 250, something like that, and then put something in it. Put rosemary in it, or put chili garlic sauce in it, put thyme in it, and let it bubble, right? And when it bubbles, it'll let off all those essential oils into the fat, which will bind up that flavor right away. And then if you have a permanent coffee filter, you can pour your oil through that or through a strainer, and then you have perfumed bacon fat that you can drizzle over anything like greens to add fat to it, and it's a whole food because it was rendered yourself from the bacon. And then you can add in things like parsley and thyme flavor and things like that. So I've really enjoyed in making those kinds of dressings. I'll toast my sesame seeds in my bacon fat, and then I'll add a little bit of soy sauce and sambal chili garlic sauce, swirl that all around, and then drizzle that over something like an avocado. I eat a shitload of pork rinds. I think they're great. If you want to bread anything like chicken, then instead of breading, you just use crushed up pork rinds, and you use egg batter, and then you just put pork rinds on the outside and cook that. I do a lot of meats in the slow cooker. I broil big pieces of meat to get the brown on the outside, and then I throw them in the slow cooker, and there's lovely sauces that can be made with apple cider vinegar, mustard, Worcestershire sauce. I actually do know how to say that word. I just failed. It's okay. Worcestershire sauce. Anyways, Worcestershire. Those are fun ways to flavor things. Onions, pepperoncinis. Pepperoncinis are great. If you're slow cooking stuff, you can throw in sticks of butter for leaner pieces of meat that will then kind of coagulate on the meat when you shred it later on. So if you do shredded chicken breasts or thighs with pork tenderloin or something like that, and you shred it and it was cooked in the presence of a lot of butter, the butter will kind of coat those specific muscle fibers and make it more fatty and unctuous than it would otherwise be. So you can do like shredded pork and shredded chicken, then put it in a leaf for a taco, and you got tacos and stuff. So I've been eating primarily whole foods and lots of meats and real meat fats. Sorry, vegans, I have no clue how to do keto veganism. That is topic for a different individual. So I can't help any of you people, unfortunately. One of the things I think I'm going to try that I haven't tried yet that I would really like to take a look at is making my own olive oil. I have a lot of problems with soybean oil, environmentally and health-wise. It's not a great oil all around. So the soybean oil and the mayonnaise has become way too big a part of my diet to eat so much soybean oil. So I think I will investigate using an oil myself to make before out of olive oil and stuff. And I looked at the olive oil Hellmann's in the grocery store and the other olive oil mayonnaises. They're still primarily soybean oil. They just use the olive oil to flavor it. So I'm probably going to switch to something like an olive oil mayonnaise. I will warn you, olive oil has kind of an olive oil flavor in the mayonnaise. It won't taste just like mayonnaise, so you might want to use something like a peanut oil if you're going to make a neutral flavored mayonnaise out of a better oil, I would recommend peanut oil. You could use coconut oil. I don't know how that's going to come out because of the consistency. Fruits, nah, fruits are mostly out of my life. I eat some blueberries a little with some heavy, some Ready Whip with the extra creamy, or I make my own whipped cream out of heavy cream and one of those little cream canisters. You can make your own whipped cream, so I do that sometimes. And then you can eat that with blueberries or some raspberries, but very little bit of it. But at the same time, it hits your sweet tooth if you have like those little metal sauce cups they give to you at restaurants. I bought those at a restaurant supply store. So I put berries in that, and then I put whipped cream on top, and that's like a serving of berries and cream for me. And I only eat those every 4 or 5 days. Probably eaten it 3 times since I've been on keto, but it's delicious. It's okay to eat some blueberries. And again, it hasn't really pushed me out of ketosis. And again, I'm not focused on ketosis. I'm focused on fat adaptation. I'm looking at whether or not I'm in ketosis as biofeedback of whether or not fat adaptation is settling in and how resilient my fat adaptation is, rather than worrying about being in ketosis all the time or being worried about one particular food that knocks me out. Sorry, this is a recliner, and I went to like reposition, and it went to recline, and we almost had some reclination. Getting rid of soda and going to seltzers has been a big part of things for me. I got rid of that before I went keto, but I think that is really where a lot of my blood sugar problem came from that led me to have to be keto, basically. Some of you beginners, more questions. What is it that you're confused about on this contradictory diet? Exogenous ketones, I don't recommend them. I feel that that's not necessary. You want to do exogenous ketones, I guess, after a cheat meal. A dose, that seems a ridiculous high price. And if you're not fat adapted, it's not going to make you fat adapted. A keto diet, it won't keep you in ketosis. So I don't understand why you would pay $4 a dose for exogenous ketones. I have seen people swear by them. I know there's a lot of multi-level marketing, sales rep coaching going on with exogenous ketones, so I would be very careful with those. Why people make so many recipes for fat bombs, hashtag word that you can use on Instagram and Pinterest and stuff, and it's an interesting concept, and recipe videos get a lot of views. So I don't recommend that you worry too much about fat bombs. And if you do make them, try to make or whatever, because the larger, even ice cube size ones is just, especially for those coconut mouthfeel, to put that much coconut oil in your mouth. If you've ever done oil pulling, it's similar to that, and it's a hell of an experience. So be careful with the fat bombs. I think it's kind of a fad. It helps you make videos to flesh out your channel, so people do it, but that's fine. And I have made some fat bombs. I've not been impressed with the flavor on any of them. The best one I've tried was 4 tablespoons cream cheese, 2 tablespoons peanut butter, 2 tablespoons heavy whip. Again, I would make that in real small, a little bit like peanut butter cream cheese. You could probably add cocoa powder to that. You could probably have added more sweetener to that. You probably could have used PB2 or more peanut butter in there. I might cut down the amount of cream cheese in there. The fun thing to know about that is they will not stay frozen very long at all. As you might know, coconut oil is soft at room temperature, and sour cream soft at room temperature, and whipping cream is liquid at room temperature. So your most like congealed item is either the coconut oil or the cream cheese, probably the cream cheese. So if the cream cheese is the most firm thing in that particular fat bomb, at room temperature, that thing is going to become a liquidy mess fast. So cutting these fat bombs and stuff becomes a real challenge, which is why I recommend the really small silicone trays if you're going to make fat bombs. But I would not, man. I would try to eat, chuck roasts and things like that, fatty pieces of meat that make for really great meals with onions and peppers, and put them over leafy greens, and eat avocados and tuna fish, and maybe make your own mayo. And that would be how I would start. And eggs. I love hard-boiled eggs. I eat a good number of hard-boiled eggs, and I make hard-boiled eggs into like egg salad and then put that on other things. I find crunchy is the texture that's most missing in the ketogenic diet. So I lean on pork rinds really heavy for crunch, or I cook the bacon a little bit further than I normally would, because if I mix it in with something like avocado or egg salad, you really need the tooth from the bacon, because otherwise keto can have the tendency of being all kind of mushy, because meats are kind of soft, and pretty much everything that crunches is chips, fries, and those kinds of things, breadings and crusts, and you miss that sensation in eating. It can become a little mushy. So I lean on pork rinds pretty heavily, and I think you can crisp up some other things. Some people do well with the cauliflower. You can definitely crisp up kale. Kale does have some carbs in it though, so look into that before you lean too heavily on kale. Any other questions, people? Is there any meal that's been getting you by that you'd like to share with people? I did pre-make egg cups. As opposed to fat bombs, I think that things like a pre-made egg souffle, basically, or a frittata, where you chop up some keto ingredients, you drop it in the bottom of a muffin tin, you scramble some eggs, pour it over top, and then cook it in the oven. Having grab-and-go snacks, string cheese. Oh my god, the string cheese. It's in the sodium content, but salami and prosciutto, really excellent sources of fat, really delicious, really satiating. So make yourself some meat and cheese plates. Those are great also. All right, well, I feel kind of natural end coming. I'm not seeing as many questions as I was, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But thanks for staying in with me, and if you have any more questions, I'll check back on the video later.